Hey everybody, this is the fourth here, and in this video I wanted to introduce you to another technique regarding reverb and delay. And this technique is to delay into transitions. So one way to help smooth up a transition is to have a delay on a certain sound or a few different sounds right before that transition happens. And this is a technique that I use all the time, so I have a few different examples for you here. The first example I have is my Hide and Seek remix, and you'll hear where the delay is when I play the track about here. So the transition happens right in this area, and if you pay attention to the vocal while that transition happens, you should be able to hear the delay into that transition that I'm talking about. And I just think that that produces a really nice transition from this kind of chorus sounding bit. Transitioning from that into the build up. And another example is in my track Force Fed Fantasy. I used this to transition from kind of the intro bit to the break. And you can hear this right here. So I really think that the vocal delay on the IV really helps to kind of smooth up this transition as well. So if I had just transitioned directly into the pad without that delay, I think it would have sounded a little bit empty. And then I have another example in my Bedroom DJ track. And this is again going from, it's actually the mid intro, so it's kind of like part A of this track into the break. So you can hear right here both of the lead sounds and the kind of moaning sound get delayed into that the break. And that just smooths things up quite a bit. And this effect isn't limited to delay. You can also use this with really nice long tail reverbs. And this is something I did in my track Unicorn Spiders when I changed from the intro section to the break. So again, it's kind of like transitioning from part A to the break. And you can hear this here. So you can hear that the kind of re-space sounding thing, it has a nice increase in the reverb in this bit, and then the tail of that reverb kind of sustains and decays throughout the beginning of that break. So you can see that doing this with delay or reverb is a really nice way to help smooth up your transitions. And I'll quickly show you how to set something like this up, because I think that would be helpful. So let's say I have this snare sound here, and I want to have it right before a transition, and I want to add some nice delay onto it to help that transition. So here's that snare pattern. And then we'll say that the break is kind of here. So the transition happens right in this region here. So what I want to do is, if I had that linked to a track, I would make a send with it. And I can call this transition delay and color it whatever I like. And then I will send this track through the transition delay. And I'm going to take the level all the way down to 0. So initially, nothing is going through that track. And then I will set up my reverb or delay. And I want to make sure that the dry signal is muted. And then what I can do is, while I'm kind of making it sound how I want it to sound, I can enable that again. And I can just adjust the parameters. And, I could just take my time making it perfect and get it sounding exactly how I want it to sound. I probably want the feedback to last a decent amount of time if it's going to be a transition effect, but that's not necessarily the case. In some cases, you may be fine with a shorter kind of transition effect. But that's all stuff you'll play with and fine tune on your own and decide what sounds the best to you. So here's kind of the effect that I'm going for. And I want that to happen only during the transition. So I'm going to turn the routing from that snare to the delay send all the way back to 0. And then just create an automation clip of that send amount. And if I want it back to this value here, I can just copy it. And then when I make that point, basically what I will do is I'll set that point here, and I'll set it slightly before and make it hold. And then I can, disable it right after. But then I would want to paste the value here. So I copied the original value, and then I pasted it to the point here, which happens directly before that transition. So you can hear when it plays, these 3 snares will be normal, but when it gets to this snare, that transition effect will happen. And so you can do this with, your drums, you could do this with a vocal, your instruments, you can do this with whatever you want to, and you can adjust the parameters or use different effects to get exactly the sound you want. And I just think it's a really cool technique that can be used to help smooth up or spice up your transitions. And I don't know if this is technically mixing, but since I'm covering reverb and delay in this section, I figured I may as well make a video about this and throw it in there, because this is a technique that I love. I use it all the time. And I really find it helps me out with my transitions and helps them sound more, I guess professional, more smooth, just more natural and all that. So hopefully this video is helpful. Hopefully you can now use this technique to make some really powerful, smooth, and awesome sounding transitions.